Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are now listening to RPG Maker Cola.
Hey RPG Maker Cola listeners, welcome to RPG Maker Cola Season 2. It's your fizzy soda-filled source of content for game development opinions that mean very little in the grand scheme of things. It's your favourite RPG Maker podcast, RPG Maker Cola. I'm your host Benny, also known as Cash, also known as the Puzzle Snob, also known as the hostess that brings the mostest to the podcaster's podcast with the friendliest friends. And this is the place for you. It's a chill space where we get together skilled developers from the RPG Maker community to chat cordially and occasionally non-cordially about game development, game design, and probably a whole bunch of unrelated other stuff too. It's casual, it's cool, it's cola. Today I have two guests that I'm really excited to introduce. Our first guest is a game developer who has been quite new for me to discover. However, it seems they joined the RPG Maker web community in April of 2014, but they weren't active and only started participating in the community around, say, July of 2019. I may be wrong there, but in July 2020, as a submission for 3 different game jams, this developer co-created a 30-minute length game with Joe the Box called 3 Inevitable, or I Inevitable, depending on whether you pronounce the Roman numeral, a 3-act retro meditation on free will, loss, and failure. This was for the GMTK Game Jam 2020. Then in October of 2020, they created a game called Investigating the Deus Mortis Cult as an entry into 3 October jams. It is a top-down stealth horror game which follows a journalist's investigation into strange cult activity on an abandoned shipwreck in the Arctic. Sounds very interesting. Gameplay consists of navigating the abandoned K&M Kraki shipwreck in the dark, avoiding cultists and looking for clues as to their motivations, which seems like a super interesting kind of story to be focusing on. However, their main project in the game development world started in July of 2019, and that is being the solo developer for Throne, a dark fantasy JRPG about the ominous twilight before humanity's end. It looks incredibly amazing. Armed with a wealth of stylish art and dark undertones, this game focuses on a world that ends in 7 moons, or 7 days, where you adventure through the interconnected, surreal, and fantastical island of Tropal, engaging with complex characters using a keyword system and getting stronger through puzzles, adventure, and challenging battles. The game looks visually stunning, featuring much custom art, which seems to me like a oppressive atmosphere, with medieval flavorings to the art, symbolism, and language, and with the dark and perhaps occult atmosphere. I may be wrong in some of those things, but that's what we're here to find out. I'd like to introduce this incredibly talented developer, the fantastic Deficiency Productions. Hi there.
Wow, thanks for the awesome introduction. That was great. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. Should I just call you Deficiency or Deficiency Productions? What do you go by?
Yeah, whatever's easiest. Deficiency works, right? Cool.
Yeah, probably. Really happy to be here. Thanks for saying yes to be on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Our second guest is also a developer of a couple of games, and I only noticed them recently as well. Their first game is a bizarre dark fantasy RPG with no class restriction, where you play as a Knight of the Depths. Your goal is to defeat the Mass, a colossal floating ball of grease that will block the hole in the sky of a twisted and unknown world, turning the world of the depths to hell like in the old times, causing an apocalypse. So yeah, this game looks really colourful and vibrant, and also it has some of those, grim undertones as well that are going on. It looks extremely interesting. Apparently there's 3 unique optional characters to recruit, a hard mode or anxious mode that adds new enemies and other dangers, 3 alternative endings to your story, and at least 1 hour of gameplay. This game looks very, very interesting, and it seems people are already attaching to it. And their newest game, it seems, maybe incorrect, it's a game called Warrior of Nowhere, a game where lust is turning every living being into creatures that devour and defile all those they find. A walking sack of blood from an island of flesh, Warrior of Nowhere follows them on their mission to exterminate lust from the world. Very interesting concept. So your aim is to explore the bizarre reality of an unknown world and sink deeper into the world across this land and learn of the people, their lives, and culture. Very interesting. I'm very, very proud to introduce this incredibly talented and wonderful developer who I've just kind of learned about. It is the one and only Isopodomancer. Hello.
Hello, I'm Isopodomancer, creator of Orompaquenga and a horse enthusiast.
Yeah, really happy to have you on board the podcast, and yeah, excited.
Yeah.
So yeah, now that we're well introduced into our guests, let's go into our next section, the Buzz Corner. Welcome to the Buzz Corner. Here's the part where we talk about what RPG Maker or otherwise indie games are gaining buzz for us at the moment. Or not, they could be old too. I asked our guests to bring one game if they can to talk about that they're pretty interested in. They don't have to have played it, just has to give a game page or something that looks interesting to them. Now, I've had a person on the podcast previously, a developer named Old Pat. They make awesome games such as Ica and Cyclock. Yeah, there we go. They make these really interesting games, and they've also created a game called Karma Flow. So I'm really interested in their next game, created for an event called The Lady Puppet. Now, this game is a short 2D dark adventure game with an emphasis on atmosphere, exploration, light puzzle solving, and stealth, where you control Lila Rhea, an innocent girl who will have to help find her way out of Claw Hill, a mysterious place that's apparently disconnected from the outside world and that's trapping her and all other survivors. You seem to be able to use Claw Hill's powers in a way that will help her solve puzzles and get away from foes and control her companions. So this seems like a really interesting, atmospheric tale. And I know Old Pat puts like a lot of polish into their game and uses some innovative mechanics, so I'm really interested to see this, and also the vibe of this seems quite dark and oppressive as well, like with a survival component and some like diaries and lore to kind of explore. So I think it's kind of like fitting given the episode that we're currently in.
Oh yeah, right on. Some of the portrait work is great.
Yeah, it is. They do their own portraits, they do all their own stuff, and this is created within a month for a game jam, so it's pretty, it's a lot of work to do in a short space of time.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah, go check out Old Pat's other work as well, but the Lady Puppet looks really good. Yeah, Deficiency, what game is buzzing for you at the moment?
Okay, so I recently played through a couple of Cicada Marionette games. Baby's Town and the other one's called Day/Night Town. They're just kind of like short experiences, walking sims, where you kind of like walk around and talk to these weird, whimsical characters. But it seems like there's definitely that dark undertone where just things get really real out of nowhere, or like you have no idea like how like this image just looks really symbolic, or like, you know what I mean? So yeah. It's just, the games are really trippy. They're great experiences just to roam around in, and so I couldn't recommend those enough. So it's like it uses MV3D, I think. It's like a sort of 3D exploration diorama. I'm struggling to kind of understand what it's about. Is like an atmosphere, like tone poem of sorts, or? Yeah, that's a really great way to describe it. It is, kind of in a similar vein to poetry. It seems like really, really free form, Yeah. Yeah, so it's definitely an exploration experience, It's not much of a game in terms of like gameplay or like strategy. It's just something to enjoy. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, there was this really atmospheric game that I played a while ago that was non-RPG Maker, but it kind of reacted to musical changes and things like that. I forgot, I think it was Proteus, that's what it was called. Proteus was a game, it sort of was like just exploring an island, and that's kind of all you did, and I think
It was, it's like a, exploration only game. Like, I'm sure we've had some, like Yume Nikki and stuff in RPG Maker. They have some, really exploration based, and that's it. And that's like unapologetically what they are. So I reckon that's something like what this is, or is it maybe a bit scary, or what?
There's some scary moments. I think it's definitely in a similar it's a similar vibe to Yume Nikki in terms of just how surreal it is. It's I guess just surreal in that similar way.
Cool. And it's interesting. I just like I want more games to be created in like MV3D and stuff, because if you look at this game, it doesn't really look like it was made in RPG Maker, but they did what they could. Baby's Town and Day Night Town, go check those out. Isopodomancer, what would you like to bring to the Buzz Corner today?
I was thinking about Fear and Hunger Termina, the sequel to Fear and Hunger. I chose this game because at first I thought the game wasn't made in RPG Maker, because all the art is all custom. There's an amazing script work going on.
It's like super dark, and it takes place in the same universe as the first Fear and Hunger, apparently, right?
Yeah, it probably comes from one of the endings. The first game had several endings, and one of them probably became the true ending.
Yeah, this is like, it's got like that, apparently it's got that slow burn horror atmosphere and like strategic dismember combat system. So I'm like, and it's got that 3-day game cycle as well. So it's like, apparently it takes place in an alternative take on the real world, where religions and occult are a lot more prevalent, and where ancient deities are still worshipped in everyday life. And you pick from one of many characters, each with their own story set around the city of Preheval. And there's powers at play that go beyond human comprehension. So, it looks really atmospheric, and like a lot of work has gone into this one.
Yeah. Something I really like about this game is how the creator managed to make a good battle system. I think it's the hardest part of making an RPG Maker game.
Like sometimes when I look at really pretty looking games, like, I mean, it's grotesque in the way that it approaches its creatures and stuff, but it's also very pretty, I think, because everything's well drawn and super like well composed. Sometimes I think, so it has to sacrifice somewhere, so it's like not literally, like not a human sacrifice or anything, but like sacrifice like gameplay. Like I'm like, okay, fine, the gameplay has to be bad, right? But like I'm like, but like sometimes just like, nope, the gameplay or writing can be the strongest part of it. It's like, okay, can you please like not embarrass me with how good your game is, like
Fear and Hunger, that's one of those rare cases where everything is just top notch, for sure. It's a great project.
Have you played the first one and Terminal, or just the first one alone?
At first I played the first game first, and then I heard about Termina.
So it'll be interesting to see how this one delivers on the first game as well, because is this completed? I'm trying to look. It's in development still, right? Yeah. So it's still in development. But I think it has a demo available, so you can just kind of buy that on itch.io. I'd love to play through these ones. So that's what's buzzing for us at the moment. Go play Fear and Hunger Termina, Baby's Town and Day Night Town, and The Lady Puppet. Cool. Let's transition to our next section, which is the section called We've Been Playing Games. Maybe? Hey there, you passerby, just walking by our podcast. We're recording on the side of the street, and you're walking down the pathway, and you're walking past us, and we're yelling at you, saying, have you been playing games? If not, that's all cool. And why are we yelling at you? And you're telling us to stop hollering you over? Okay, that's fine, but we would like to kind of invite you into our little podcast table to listen as each of us talk about a game we've been currently playing or have played, and explain what we liked and disliked about it. Yeah, so the game I'd like to bring is a game called The Pedestrian. Yes, you heard that right. It is about a pedestrian, or rather, it's about a walking person going like through various signs that are placed in 2D about a 3D world. So you like this, the displays that are on that are here, like in the puzzles and stuff. It's basically a fairly linear puzzle game, but with some really like innovative presentation. That makes a simple 2D game like click and come off the screen, sort of thing, so to speak.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
intriguing.
Yeah, the 3D elements are like sort of at the same time unnecessary and yet provide a lot of like flavor to what the 2D elements are showing, and then later on, like the 3D elements kind of actually do come into play. Like you'll like push a box onto a thing, or like drag a battery onto a real life walkie-talkie, or things like and you might go through these 2D signs to infiltrate a like underground base or something like that. But the thing that kind of works for this is that the puzzles are just really well designed. I like 2D puzzle games. Like I've played them on Newgrounds. I grew up like on like Flash games and Congregate and all these like lovely well-designed games that people could play even if they didn't have very high-end PCs. But because when I was young I had a really bad computer. These ones, I just love really simple puzzle games, and this game just nails it. I'm really positive about this game. I played it for a bit, I got hooked, and go check it out. It's really minimal and simple and lovely.
Yeah, it looks awesome. I mean, who hasn't imagined like a little man like, jumping around on signs or whatever as a kid? So this is, I definitely see what you mean with the flavor there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very imaginative and minimal, and story doesn't dump story on you. It's like, okay, you're a little dude like going on signs and you're the pedestrian in a city, and that's it, like for now. And then they're like, okay, where are you going? What are you doing? As it goes on, like it doesn't, so it's like very minimal, but
it jumps straight to the gameplay, right?
Yeah, actually it's almost straight gameplay, like just no words. But then it's like, okay, like maybe a couple hours, maybe an hour or two, and you're like, okay, where are we going? And then it kind of like takes you into like secret base and stuff, and like tells a story through its environment and things like that. So it's like, it's very subtle in the way it tells its story. So yeah, but anyway, it's not a very like deep story, but it's still going to tell you something. Yeah, so yeah, I really like this. It's very gameplay heavy, but also pretty game. Go try that out, Pedestrian. My only negative is that you might want to wait for a sale for it to be sold, because it's not a super long game, and at its current price tag, I don't know what it is in your country, wherever you are, just listen to this podcast, but you might need to wait for it to come down a bit, because I don't think it, I'm big, like, I love paying good money for games, but I don't want people to be disappointed to pour money into something and then go, oh, is it finished now? Okay. So I'd wait for it to be on sale. Excellent. Deficiency, what game have you been playing, or maybe not, or maybe?
Oh, okay. So I've been playing the Resident Evil 2 remake. Oh man, it's just excellent. The level design, at least in the first half of the game, reminds me of like Dark Souls 1 in terms of it being like really interconnected, and so I just really respect that, and so that's just a vibe you don't get very often in like games nowadays, maybe because of the more multiplayer emphasis, but I really just enjoyed myself. There's lots to uncover and explore, plenty of notes to read, so if you're into lore, it's perfect there. And oh man, I mean, in terms of just like making a horror game, just the moment to moment gameplay is so interesting, but also very unsettling, which is great. Like just attacking some normal enemy, being like a zombie or whatever, that would be a really tense experience, because you can die in like one hit or whatever. So yeah, so I've just been really enjoying that. Yeah.
What would you say makes it like truly like horrifying, or is it well directed, or what kind of makes it like truly special in that way, would you say?
I would say just the sense of immersion you get. There's not really a moment, aside from maybe like the menu screen, where you're taken out of the experience. I mean, it just doesn't feel gamey. You're exploring a maze-like structure, so and it's so interconnected that you never have to think, okay, you don't have to get out of the game, all right? Yeah, so it's like there's never a moment where I felt like, okay, I want to stop playing or whatever. It carried that interest through into the end. So it's a really great game, great experience.
Yeah, I've seen people go pretty hard out on this game as well. Like they'll do different runs, and they'll do like a run with like limited weapons and things like that. And like they really love this game. And have you played any other like Resident Evil? Either of you? Have you played like other ones, and how does it compare to this one? Is this one the best one in your opinion, or is it like, does it capitalize on the best of Resident Evil, or is it kind of has some ways that the original was better? Or?
I'm in the midst of playing Resident Evil 1 HD,
right?
And I think I enjoyed Resident Evil 2 a little bit more, just because of the modern sensibilities that were brought to the table.
Yeah.
The HD remake of 1 was released in like 2002 or something, so. It's what do you call it? I think Resident Evil 1 has a similar level structure, but it's not as able to carry that interest.
Yeah.
Maybe because of the hardware limitations of the time. But it is also really a great experience, and I think it's important to understand that if you're trying to understand this like single player level structure thing. Yeah. I find that you just can't get enough reference for that type of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, who would have thought that like a remake of Resident Evil 2 would get like Game of the Year buzz and things like that? Like it was. Yeah. So they just went over and above the Call of Duty when it came to like creating the game, and it's interesting when I think of like remake or something. I kind of just like give out a sigh, like. Again, they're remaking that. Why would you need to remake something? Why not make new games? But it seems that they've put enough new and fresh kind of content in there that it's almost its own new experience, sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. They really breathed new life into that. So,
whereas like Resident Evil 3, apparently people weren't as wowed by that. I don't know why. Maybe it was more of the same. I'm not too sure. Yeah, but like apparently, Resident Evil 2. I haven't played it myself, but I would love to play it because I've watched it being played by like friends and like streamers, and I kind of get jealous. I'm like, why I should be playing this? Why am I watching someone else? But then I just go to being my old procrastinating self. So
yeah, it's definitely worth a play. Check it out if you ever get a chance, for sure.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that deficiency. I would like to ask. Isopodomancer, what game have you been playing lately?
I've been playing Dark Souls 2.
Oh?
Dark Souls 2 was actually the last game of the saga that I played, and I've been always hearing all these things about how bad the game is and how broken it is and how bad the hitboxes are and stuff like that. But it became probably my favorite game of the saga. I don't know why. I just think it tried to be different to the others.
Yeah.
Right? It had so much new mechanics that I miss now in Dark Souls 3.
Yeah.
I think that people exaggerated with how bad the game is.
Right. Dark Souls has become that kind of like household name that you sort of like kind of equate with like something is Souls-like, or something, because it's so influential in the way that it kind of approached things. I assume that Deficiency has also played some of this game.
Oh, yeah,
of course.
For sure. I agree too. I think Dark Souls 2 is so underrated. It's actually, I would say I like Dark Souls 2 more than Dark Souls 3.
It's like the black sheep.
Yeah, it is the black sheep. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. What would you say is like? What would you say? Why did you prefer Dark Souls 2 Deficiency as well, and Isopodomancer?
Probably because I don't know. I think I felt like it was way bigger than the other games. I don't know. I just found level design funnier than the other games.
Yeah, like the level design. Yeah, it seems that they kind of hit the gold on this one.
Yeah.
And what would you say about their later like games? Like Bloodborne and the like, and what was the other one? Sekiro. Have you played any of those? And what did you think of those as compared to, say, Dark Souls 2? Did they kind of iterate well on that, in your opinion, or did they kind of like sort of?
So, some people may want to kill me, but I think Sekiro is boring. I don't know. I just didn't.
Yeah, I agree.
Like it's not bad, but I just didn't. I didn't feel it.
Yeah.
Was it a good combination of like? I mean, I haven't played it myself, but was it like some people were saying it's a little bit more stripped down? You'd say like the less of the RPG mechanics and things like that, in favor of other sort of mechanics. What would you say you kind of found a bit lacking about it?
The combat, probably. I was just
What? Really? You didn't like the combat?
I'm sorry, I'm just used to be able to use too many weapons, and when I only have one, I'm sorry. I need more. I need more stuff.
Variety of like ways to attack
right
and different weapons that you'd like to use, and like strategies, I guess, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Oh man, gosh, I'm the other way. Yeah.
What were you?
Because like with Sekiro, I think the weapons they're all so well developed, kind of like in a similar vein to Bloodborne. Whereas in Dark Souls, you look there's like 80 short swords you can choose from. Half of them they aren't even like good, right? So I feel like there's just a lot more content condensed into something better in Sekiro. But I agree in terms of like. I don't know, like the creative design, the world design. I think that's kind of lacking in comparison to something like Dark Souls.
Ah, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're saying, deficiency, is that you think that like there are more weapons in Dark Souls and stuff, but you'd say that like Sekiro kind of made it more sleek and in the design of how many there were, and how like kind of they got rid of the extraneous weapons, but you prefer, say, the world and the flavor and the design of the world design of Dark Souls 2?
Yeah, for sure. For sure, absolutely. And just to kind of like expand on that a little bit, I think with Sekiro, like the level up system, there isn't really a level up system like in Dark Souls.
Yeah.
And I think this is like maybe a little heretical, but I think the idea of like leveling up with skills is so much better than like a numerical progression, right?
Yeah, I mean, I encourage heretical takes on an RPG Maker Cola. It's kind of our brand, so just bring all the heresy onto the podcast.
Oh my gosh!
No,
perfect. That's your tagline, huh? Like. Heresy.
Yeah. RPG Maker Cola, we bring the heresy.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's Dark Souls 2, and apparently Isopodomancer is having some fun with it. So go check that out if you haven't. I mean, a lot of people probably have, but check that out again, because apparently people love to play this game more than once. Yeah, so that's the games that we've been playing, maybe. And now we're going to go to our next section, which is the topics we must discuss, because this is a podcast and it's serious. Welcome to the topics we must discuss. Here's the parts of the podcast where we ask the serious questions. Well, they're kind of serious. They're halfway. Yeah, sorry, I got to fix that echo. Yeah, I'm going to ask a question of both of our guests here, and they're free to answer in whichever order that they wish. Our first question is about Origins. How did you come about making games? And if RPG Maker, how did you discover RPG Maker? What's your story?
I started playing games on the Super Nintendo. As a kid, I just really got into Secret of Mana. Oh man, just something about the art design and like just the overall flavor of it just vibed with me as a kid. So I think that was a big influence. And of course I was the same as Cash. I thought, okay, I'm gonna go online and I'm gonna play all these free like Flash games. So that was a big influence as well. And while I was playing those Flash games, I saw an ad for RPG Maker XP. And so it's like, oh man, this is so freaking cool. I can make a, Secret of Mana, right? And so, I got that, and I've always been kind of like fiddling around with RPG Maker, but I've never released anything serious up until working on Throne and some of those jam projects, and so it's been a little bit of a journey. Hopefully some of you guys can relate to that. And that's about it.
Yeah, you started making RPG Maker XP, and then I suppose you moved on from there. What engine do you use now?
Nowadays I'm using MV.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite ready to make that jump to MZ, so...
Yeah. Yeah, there's some differences, but if you're okay with using MV for now... Actually, I shouldn't say that. I should shill for RPG Maker. Buy every single version you can. No, I don't know. Buy the ones that work for you. Very interesting. So yeah, the Flash games. What Flash game sites did you use?
Oh, man. Okay, maybe I was avoiding that question, but I was very into Neopets as a kid.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And but what do you call it?
Yeah, I was. That game was actually very, very well. I think it was actually very well designed. The meta structure around Neopets, I think it was a lot deeper than people kind of think for that type of game. There was like currency and like obsessions about it and clubs, and it went very deep. Mm-hmm. Like it was like an MMO. Like that was. It went deep. There was like. They had like their own eBay for like super rare items, and like, I mean, not that I ever used that, but I definitely explored it because it was like, I thought it was a part of the game as a kid, I was like, whoa, what the heck is this? But it was just fascinating to me how like deep, and how, how you can get this ultra super rare item, 0.0001% of the time or whatever. That was crazy to me. It totally expanded the world, but yeah. Neopets was ultra fascinating to me as a kid, and it's still actually kind of fascinating now. I think it still exists, which is funny to think about, but it was a big craze back in the day. I don't think it gets the props that it deserves for how, honestly, because like you could play Flash games to gain Neo points that you had to return to every day, so it had that kind of social media aspect to it. I actually think it was ahead of its time. But anyway, this isn't the Neopets podcast, but it's like, I think it's an interesting kind of phenomenon, and I think more games could actually learn from its meta structures, and especially MMOs and things like that. Yeah, very interesting. RPG Maker XP is an interesting engine to kind of jump in on as well. A lot of people kind of come in on the 2K3 and VX Ace kind of eras, but it's interesting to hear someone who came in on XP.
Yeah. Not many people are talking about XP these days, but this is about the same as the other ones, I'd say.
Yeah. Excellent. And how about you, Isopodomancer? How did you come about making games? What's your story?
Well, I was never interested in making games in the first place, but when I was around 12 years old, one of my math teachers told us about Scratch. I don't know if you know it. And when I started to learn by myself and tried to create games, and every time they were more ambitious, I used to make Final fan games and even little roguelike. But
in Scratch?
Yes.
Wow.
I never did something really serious. And then I discovered this RPG Maker game called Lisa the Painful, and I thought it was really cool, and I wanted to make a fan game because I saw a lot of people who was also trying to make fan games about Lisa the Painful. So that's the reason why I got into RPG Maker, because I wanted to make a fan game, and I never did. and instead I jumped to make original projects, and I feel more comfortable that way. Yeah,
that is interesting. I actually have had, I think, at least one other guest who started making games using Scratch. It's a very interesting kind of it's like a visual programming language that they teach a lot in schools. That kind of teaches people how to play games, and I think it's one of the most kind of innovative projects that's come about. It's like it centers around games, which is a really nice way to get kids into it, because kids love the idea of making games. But then it's like visually explicit enough to be able to like have people see the logic and see how it all nests within each other and stuff. So I think it's really, it's respectable. And I really like that idea of starting using that. Which RPG Maker engine did you discover first, and how did you discover it?
RPG Maker UX Ace. I'm not sure if I'm sorry if my English is too bad.
No, it's fine. Yeah. And that was because you saw Lisa and you're like, okay, how did they make this? And then you're like, okay, what engine did they use? And then kind of got into that engine, I guess, which was VX Ace. Correct?
I use Ace because that's the same RPG Maker Lisa the Painful used to be created. So, of course, I had to use Ace if I wanted to make it easier. Or if... Yeah. But anyways, I kept using Ace because I felt more comfortable with it. I'm not interested in jumping to M or XP.
Yeah. I mean, XP would be going backwards, but MV or MZ... apparently there's some benefits to MV or MZ, like there's the smooth animations and different kind of things that you can bring to it, resolutions, but VX Ace is decent in and of itself, so I mean, yeah, nothing to sniff at.
I actually have a question for you. So what about Lisa was so inspirational to you? Because, a lot of people seem to really resonate with that game.
It's probably because I don't know, I think the game was really big to be made in RPG Maker with how much party members did you have? Like around 20, and there are dozens of places to explore.
Oh yeah, okay, that's awesome, cool. Thanks. Yeah, I was curious about that.
Like it's motivating.
The tone is very unique as well. It's got that kind of like sarcastic tone, and it's got like humor and gore and like quirky humor, and I find that aspect's quite unique about it, right? And I guess that kind of goes into our second question. What types of games are you interested in? What inspires you to create stuff? So it might be other things like books or art or nature. What inspires you?
I would say what inspires me is, I guess, like I listen to like Leonard Cohen, and recently like Laura Marling, and that folk music, and so if I hear some like poetry or music that's really great, I will try to express those ideas in a novel way. And then also I find game development like therapeutic in a way, just kind of expressing some of my deeper like repressed emotions in terms of like a way that other people can understand that's kind of socially acceptable. So
that is, if being a game developer is socially acceptable, but
oh yeah, that in itself is a little bit of a contention.
We're in and of ourselves a new breed, so we're sort of crafting ourselves a new niche, but
there we go.
We are what we are.
Yeah, so I guess those are the things that inspire me.
I like the music and stuff. Like, do you play music while you're like other music while you're developing as a kind of, you say it was kind of therapeutic, is it kind of meditative practice, or how would that be your score for your game development process, or does it work a different kind of way?
Yeah, I would say it is a slightly meditative process, where I'll just take some time to mull over some ideas that I've been grappling with and like write them down on paper and try to process them. And so I find that that's where the real like pure ideas come from. That's from yourself, from things that you really experience and are passionate about. So so I would say totally, it's an introspective meditative process. And I think Claus was asking a question about that, so maybe we'll go into that more later, or Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. That's view into the future. But we'll come back to that. We'll loop back to that. And yeah, I like some Laura Marling as well, and I don't listen to Lily Cohen as much. I listen to Lump from her, and apparently it's really nice and Song for Our Daughter. So yeah, really,
so
really
lyrical,
cool stuff
for sure. Yeah.
yeah, really good. Isopodomancer, what inspires you?
I don't know. I would say, you notice this derpy medieval art that you see sometimes in books and charts?
Nice.
I usually look at that kind of stuff to inspire myself and make games.
Where can you find that kind of stuff? Like, do you just Google it, or at a certain era you kind of get PDFs of it from somewhere? Or
I used to have this webpage where I could easily find medieval art, but I don't know. I think I lost it, so I just Google it and hope it pops up.
Yeah, I mean, you probably must know now, like what to Google, like to get some kind of inspiration, I guess. And is it what about it kind of inspires you? Is it the way that you're connecting with history, or is it some kind of you just like the you get like to get into the shoes of someone else who lives into a different era or period from which you're living right now, or what kind? What about it inspires you?
I'm a history enthusiast. I also find interesting how weird and they draw the signs of the creatures they used to do. For example, I remember seeing drawings of elephants described to people, and those guys never saw an elephant in their life, so they had to draw it just with a description, and they look like extremely weird monsters. So I find that interesting. I don't know. I really like it.
Yeah, like for example, some would say a large, round, grey, rubbery creature with a big hose coming out of its nose. They'll probably draw like a nose and then a hose coming out of that nose and just like a big rubbery grey circle or something, like sphere or something like that with like little legs on the... Yeah, that sounds funny.
And you can also apply it to design monsters and creatures in your game.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a large element of creature design in both of your games. I think that's very fascinating. I think... You might have some, there's a common theme there, I suppose, but I don't know. We'll go into that later, I guess. Yeah, that's very interesting. Cool. So that's our section about the serious questions that we've been asking. And now it's time to go into the questions that you have been asking, dear listener. We are ready to go into the question box. Welcome to the question box. Here's a segment where we've asked RPG Maker community users to ask questions related to game dev and design that we probably don't know the answers to, but we'll try. Our first question comes from Dungeon Dev Dude or D3 from the RPG Maker Cola Discord, hi D3, who asks, what's your favorite part of game dev and your least favorite part of game dev?
Okay, so my favorite part would be getting something done that, I'm really proud of, or like just some art or like some neat system that, wasn't in the base engine, or like, so things like these are motivating. And so, but my least favorite part would probably be when I decide to make kind of like a systematic change and then I have to do like 800 database entries or whatever. Yeah, that would be my favorite and least favorite part.
Yeah, the databasing, that like the menial tasks that you have to do. Like a lot of people say, there's a lot of exciting stuff about game development, but there's a lot of, like, say if your game has a lot of like upkeep that needs to be done with stats and everything, some of it is not all that like attractive to everyone. So I mean, it's good to hear sometimes that things like that are not universally like considered attractive parts of game development design.
Yeah, it's a necessary evil.
Yeah, exactly. And Isopodomancer, what's your favorite and least favorite parts?
My favorite part of developing a game is probably putting all the assets together and seeing how to look in game and stuff. It makes me feel more complete and motivates me to keep working on it.
Yeah.
My least favorite part is probably fixing bugs or redesigning parts. That can take a good while, and I find it very tedious.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Like, I think about your favorite part, like actually seeing it come to fruition and seeing it all together is like really, like I sometimes make some like prototypes. I'm like, yeah, that looks good. But as for like bugs, I want to ask like a follow-up question. Like, was there any particularly like bad bugs that you found when making your game that you just couldn't get rid of?
Well, I see this bug way too many times where I just want this one character to move to another tile and he just won't do it. It just doesn't work. I check and everything is fine and he just doesn't do it.
He won't obey?
Oh man, I hate it when that happens.
I redo everything. I redo the event, everything from scratch and copy exactly the same stuff and suddenly it works.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know why that happens.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, relatable.
There have been some like bugs and stuff where I still don't know how I fixed it, but you know, it worked, and I was like, I have no idea why that worked. Like, it's so confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as for deficiency, are there any bugs that you like had a really hard time with when making your game?
Oh my goodness, bugs. Gosh, until I learned like a little bit of basic JavaScript, it was really hard to, address crashes. So, so I'd have to find like really crazy workarounds. Like, okay, I have to find a new plugin and then make that work aesthetically with everything that I've made up until that point. Because, incompatibilities happen. But, big ones, I don't know. I guess it was a pain, in particular. Yeah, I had to reprogram the what do you call it? Like the save scene. Oh. And that was like, yeah, a little, above my pay grade at that moment.
Yeah.
Because the plugin that I was using it had this weird incompatibility with one of the things that significantly increases performance.
Right.
So, yeah. So just weird stuff like that happen frequently, and then you got to fix them. Yeah.
It was implied that you sort of learned some JavaScript because of the bugs that came up.
Yeah, just like basic stuff, like I know how to write a function and like the operators and whatever.
So you wouldn't like consider yourself a coder per se?
No, I'm not a coder per se, but I understand things and I can do basic things. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the control flow and stuff. I mean, in RPG Maker, it makes it pretty easy. I mean, easy, but also there's a lot of bugs that can occur when you do your own conditional flows and things like that, and try and, through variables, like not using code per se and syntax. It makes the syntax easy for you because you like just point and click and do stuff. But then to do more advanced stuff, you're like, okay, I guess I do need to like buckle down and learn some coding. And there's actually people who have learned like legitimate who've been interested in coding through RPG Maker, so they go on to like learn, okay, I guess my save system isn't working, I guess I have to learn how to program that, and then like, okay, I have to, so that it kind of like a sliding scale into like, and then they actually earn like a tester role and then developer role, and then now they're just like a full-on developer when they did not study that at all at like university or college or anything like that. So
yeah, that's always crazy to see.
So RPG Maker is a good way to like kind of learn that stuff, I reckon. Thanks, Dungeon Dev Dude, for that question. And now we're going to go to a question by Claus from Twitter, who asks, for both, I assume that means Deficiency and Isopodomancer, biggest influences on your art style, and do you have any deliberate design rules in mind when designing characters or monsters in your style? Breakdowning process if you like. And oh yeah, they do have this question here also, what type of music do you listen to while designing, which I kind of touched on earlier, but if you'd like to elaborate on that. But what are the biggest influences on your art style?
Well, my biggest influence is probably Mod Light a game by Samu. In fact, that game inspires me for everything in general.
Oh.
I always have it in mind when making my games.
Yeah, this is a game by Samu, and it was created in... Was it created in RPG Maker as well?
RPG Maker, RPG Maker XP.
Oh, okay. Very interesting. And so that's the kind of like art style that you were very much inspired by and kind of like iterated from, I guess. And do you have any rules that you think of when you're trying to design characters or monsters? Like how do you go about that?
When designing, I think about body horror and how disgusting it can be to look at deformed bodies that are still easy to read. I also love to make thin and extremely tall monster with a fleshy look, like they're missing like their skinless or something.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, like, some people have also said maybe because Samu's game also looks a little bit like Off. I was wondering if you knew about or played Off, and if you were inspired by Off as well, or if you'd not really.
Actually, I've never played Off.
It has that kind of similar kind of hand-drawn black and white style sometimes on top of colored backgrounds. So I'm not too sure if maybe Samu wasn't even inspired by Off. Maybe that was just like an individual, like the two different creative processes that came up with the same thing individually.
I think he was.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember, but I think he was.
Ah, interesting. And for those who want to hear a little bit from Mortis Ghost, the creator of Off, we have a mini-sode on that as well by them, which is be quite interesting to see. But finish this one first. Yeah. So that's interesting inspiration. How about you, Deficiency? What are the biggest influences on your art style, and do you have any rules in mind when you're creating like visual parts?
I'd say some of the most influential stuff comes from like the first Dark Souls, or like there's this movie called The Holy Mountain, which is really evocative.
Oh, heck yes, yeah.
yeah, great film. Anyhow,
gotta shout out that flipping movie right there. Like, Holy Mountain is like so transgressive and incredible. It's such an unique film.
Yeah, it's really, really expressive for sure. In terms of like rules that I follow, I try to kind of like dehumanize a lot of my characters. Try to like, I don't know, make them a little bit more anonymous. I find that this makes them more cryptic and mysterious. Another thing that I do is I explore like insecurities or fears that I've been feeling, and I try to express that through my art. Yeah. So these are things, and I try to, like, obviously I try to keep like a more naturalistic style in my painting, and and so forth.
Yeah. I mean, do you paint outside of the digital space, or are you primarily a digital painter?
I paint digitally. Like that's what I do for Throne. But otherwise, I also paint traditionally.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you paint outside as well, like you paint paintings? Like physical paintings?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, like oil paintings
Oh, nice. And does that predate your game development career, or is that hobby or career? I don't know how you'd describe it, but would you say you've been painting longer than you've been making games, or you've been making games longer than you've been painting?
I started painting mid-development, but I've been making art traditionally for a while, like drawing with pencils or whatever.
Yeah. That's really cool. So I suppose you'd use a lot of your traditional kind of art background to like all those simple rules about shading and textures and all that kind of stuff that go into like the designs and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Nice. I know some developers who like paint directly. There's a developer called whose name is MeBob, who created Doggo Quest.
Yes.
And what they do is they paint paintings, physical paintings, and then scan them into the game, which is like a really interesting way to go about it. Not for everyone, but I think they say they prefer they draw like large scale paintings and then they kind of scale it right down. So that'll be an interesting kind of idea. Perhaps in future, but I think maybe you like the digital painting side of things? Or?
Yeah, it's flexible for sure, but there's kind of an organic quality that's hard to replicate in digital.
Yeah, it's a different style. And, thanks for that question, Claus, from Twitter. Our next question comes from Human from the RPG Maker Cola Discord, who asks, DevProd, your games really strike an unsettling chord. How do you go about creating such a disturbing ambiance? Are there certain guidelines to capturing such a dark mood, or do you just kind of know in your gut what to do and how to do it? And I'd also extend that question to Isopodomancer as well, because I think, there's probably some unsettling aspects of Orompaquenga as well, isn't there?
Okay, so yeah, like I said, I'm just always kind of like latently in misery, and so it's kind of easy. I don't have to walk very far, right? And so yeah, there's that. Obviously, I'm kind of studying other games like Resident Evil and Dark Souls for inspiration. So there's these things, yeah.
Isopodomancer, would you like to answer this, or maybe skip on this question? That's up to you.
I'm not sure how to answer this one.
Okay, it's fine.
I think I don't even know how I do it.
Just comes naturally.
Wow.
Thank you, Human, for your question. Combine from Twitter asks, for Isopodomancer, are you going to redo Lisa the Worthless anytime soon, or are you just sticking to original products for now?
I'm sticking to original products for now, because I really don't see myself working on stuff from others anymore. I find it too comfortable to work on original projects.
Right. Yeah. True. Yeah, there's something about working on your own stuff that would probably be quite fulfilling for you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Combine, for the question. Yeah, and we'll go into our next question, which was by Abina B from Twitter, who asks, Isopodomancer, why the rebranding of Warrior of Nowhere, and how much of the original story will be changed?
Well, that's an easy question. I just replayed the old demo of that project, and I hated it with my soul. It was bad. It was bad. I didn't think it was fun. It was slow and funny and frustrating in so many parts. You are slow and the maps are massive for no reason, and other little details. For the remake, I'm not going to change the theme, but a lot of secondary storyline will be gone or replaced.
Now, that's really interesting to hear. I actually really think that's a great sign of growth from you as a developer, when you see your old projects and you kind of go, oh, I can do much better than that now. I would find that very comforting, to be like, okay, I've grown beyond that. I've grown as a developer. I can make much better stuff than what I have before, because I've more experience. And yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way? Do you feel that you feel like you've leveled up a little bit, and you?
I feel it a lot. If I can look back at my old stuff and see and notice the mistakes, I think I can improve.
I'll actually ask that of deficiency as well. Do you feel like over the time that you've created Throne, do you feel like you've leveled up much in your abilities and skills, and do you feel like the need to redo previous things, or is it sort of...
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely feel like I've gotten a lot better over the course of development, so that ends up manifesting itself in like new art or new systems or whatever. So this coming update is going to be like pretty much an overhaul. Yeah. Oh. So yeah. Yeah.
So that's when you saw your previous stuff and you were kind of like, I can improve some of that. And
the problem of that came from feedback as well. I gave it to like some Let's Players or some people for critique, and I got some really, really valuable input on things. So right, yeah, I highly recommend that.
Yeah, and I would just be aware, like some developers, it gets into a trap for them where they start just redoing and revamping, but it's like almost like a cycle. Like you can never be perfect, and you'll always keep improving in skills, so they'll just keep redoing the first hour of the game over and over again, and then it sort of becomes a trap. So at some point, I suppose you have to keep going.
For sure. You got to call it complete at some point. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd just like to warn listeners of that trap. If you keep redoing your first party game, you're always going to improve in skill. So sometimes it's necessary. I suppose in Deficiency's case, they deemed it necessary, which, I mean, it could be very necessary to upgrade certain parts. But just don't get stuck in that loop. Some people have been creating their games for 10 to 15 years, just remaking the first hour over and over again, and it's good, but keep making, keep going.
Actually, this is the fourth time I think I'm remaking Warrior of Nowhere, and I've been working on it for 5 years already.
Oh wow! yeah.
I need to finish it now.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you also created Orompaquenga in there as well, so you've got something that you've been creating while you've been recreating Warrior of Nowhere. But I think it's good to have something alongside it, at least so you can say, I've released this thing.
That's exactly why I made it, yeah.
Yeah. And I think you've done that with Throne too, right? Deficiency, you've created some jam game.
Yeah.
Jam games?
Yeah. That really does help. Just get some novelty in there so you can grow as a developer in the meantime while you work on your big project. I've learned so much from every jam, in terms of game development and also teamwork. So yeah, also a big recommend.
And our last question from the community comes from the same user, Abinabi from Twitter, who asked Deficiency. This might be a simple question, but why make a Souls-like on RPG Maker?
A very good question. And I would say it has to do with, just being able to plan out your course of action in battle. So, like in Dark Souls, it's very time-based. Obviously, it's an action system. So, I'd say that there are a lot of moments where it seems like there isn't an optimal, or maybe new players are put into a position where it seems like there isn't an optimal course of action. Yeah. So I think having a turn-based battle system just kind of slows things down. It's a much less stressful experience.
Yes.
So I believe that it's very, very novel, and it brings new things to the Souls-like genre. So yeah.
A lot of people play turn-based games for that very reason, is because, I mean, there's that large portion of gamers who actually don't have a very either they don't have very well developed Twitch skill, or they don't have the capacity to engage in games that rely very heavily on Twitch based gameplay. I'm not talking about the streaming platform. I'm talking about what's that thing? Twitch reflexes and stuff like that. And also some people just don't enjoy that type of nervous tension that comes from having to react to things super quickly. They like to slowly plan things out and strategize. So when you have that kind of gameplay in the turn-based format, that can bring that difficult experience, that lovingly difficult experience of Dark Souls to the turn-based reflexless generation. I mean, yeah.
The next gen.
Next gen Throne.
Yeah.
Excellent. And that's our final question, which is in the question box. Hopefully that was quite enlightening. Thank you for all your questions, community. We love it when you submit questions. I know that Deficiency Productions submits a whole bunch of questions to the podcast, and I'm usually used to saying their name out loud when it comes to that section, but obviously you can't ask themselves any questions, so we were missing that part. A question from Deficiency Productions to Deficiency Productions. No. Excellent. Okay, so now that we're done with that section, let's move on to our next section, which is the deep dive. Welcome to the deep dive. In this section, we dive deep into one of each of our guest projects and figure out what went on during the process, inspirations, and elsewise. So we've decided on 2 different projects, which might be evident by now, but let's start off with Deficiency. Now, Deficiency, you're a game developer who's been quite new for me to discover. However, it seems you joined the RPG Maker web community in April of 2014, but you started participating in community around July of 2019. Is that correct?
Yeah, in terms of like engaging on the forums, yeah, but I've always been lurking.
Yeah. Were you like making games that whole time, or were you like sort of just kind of playing games and looking?
Right. I have been playing games, but also making little unreleased games like, I made this game about like a breakup, and I made a game, I started on like a big RPG, more lighthearted thing. And, so I've always been working on stuff, but never released things.
It didn't seem to be something that you wanted to, like, that was of a quality that you would be proud of being alongside, or was it just that Throne came along and that was the kind of idea that, like, really, sprung to the forefront of your consciousness, like, wow, I love this sort of thing?
Wow, I think I just had a lot of other things on my mind, it just wasn't my top priority, and I'd say otherwise...
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just a hobby,
Yeah, but then I guess
it took a long time to build up skills to get to the point where, like, okay, I might want to release this.
Yeah, you might really want to, like, tackle it with your full effort, because it seems like Throne has had a lot of effort put into it, and a lot of kind of like a big concerted effort put behind it. What's there seems to be created in such a short sort of time period. It's been like since July. Oh, sorry, was it? Yeah, July. Oh, July of 2019. Was that when you started developing Throne, or was it by that point you'd already?
Yeah, that was when I started. I'd say that I've been really focusing recently on getting faster at making art. So yeah, I would like, I don't know if this is like a pipe dream, but I would really like to be a concept artist one day. Oh. So, so I'm kind of trying to build these skills and build a little bit of a portfolio with like monsters and, just, ideas like this.
Cool. And let me just introduce Throne as a game, I guess. This game you've been developing. It's in progress, I believe, but there's a demo available. Mentioned as a dark fantasy JRPG about the ominous twilight before humanity's end. Literally, the world is going to end in 7 moons, or days, I guess, a week. There are cosmic matters at play. There is a being who consumes systematically and indiscriminately, and you live in a world of apostates who are living desperately for salvation. Combat is literally life or death. And it seems to be like a game that's set within this kind of mission-based kind of, you must save the world within, literally everything will die if you don't do something about it. It's new mission each day, and you adventure the interconnected, surreal, and fantastic island of Tropal. What made you come up with this? This is a very interesting idea. It reminds me a little bit of, say, Majora's Mask or Groundhog Day. I don't know if it shares some similarities to that kind of time-bound kind of aspect. How did you come up with the idea? Was it sudden, or did it happen gradually? Or?
Majora's Mask was probably a big influence, but I think the bigger influence in terms of the time system was another game by Cicada Marionette called Crypt Worlds, where like every time you sleep in a bed, this world progresses, it progresses, and there's like 50 days with unique content on every single day. You know what I mean? So it's just like you explore, and you see this world evolve, and you see your character evolve, and it's kind of taken in this tongue-in-cheek kind of tone, right?
Yeah.
But I would say it also has like these like serious undertones as well. Very some of the topics it explores, like, I don't know, like within the games industry, or like, just existentially, I would say, that's a really poignant product. So if anything, I want to emulate that type of design in terms of like the, there's a set limit to the time. And then I also want to, instill a sense of like urgency in players, a sense of drive. So there was that.
It's pretty urgent, the kind of concept, and I'm looking at Crypt Worlds now by Cicada Marionette. It's quite a surreal kind of like meta game where it's about crypts and visions of the impossible, shadowy beings which dwell in the abandoned corridors of the French catacombs. So it's like, yeah, it's quite. There's a game called Space Funeral made in RPG Maker. It reminds me a little bit of that kind of free flowing, creative energy, sarcastic kind of, just.
Yes.
Throwing
for sure.
everything at the wall. And that's also what Holy Mountain kind of feels like as well. This very singular expression of just like an explosion of creativity.
Yeah. It's really just an exercise in like personal expression. And I think that's what I most, respect about that game, for sure.
And you'd say some of that kind of like comes through in Throne. It's like this is your way of sort of expressing some of the themes that you've been thinking about for a while, or how would you kind of describe that?
I hope and I strive to reach that level. I would say, I'd say it comes through in like character interactions. There are events that occur only on certain days, or the world in this next update is going to progress on more of a macro like meta level. It does get pretty metal. Toward the end. I don't know. I think I would say that's how the time system is applied, and in terms of like the expression, a lot of the dialogue comes from like a deeper place in me. So just kind of like transcribing my own ideas and trying to apply them to creating a character. So yeah.
Oh, nice. I'm going to switch over to Isopodomancer.
Right.
I'll mention the game Orompaquenga, which was released. It's in completion. Yep. Is that correct?
It is complete.
Yeah, in January of this year that was when it was. It's described as like a bizarre dark fantasy RPG where you play as a knight of the depths whose goal is to defeat the Mass, a colossal floating ball of grease that will block the hole in the sky of a twisted and unknown world, turning the world of the depths to hell like in the old times, causing an apocalypse. I really like this kind of imagery and the kind of things that you brought to the table with Orompaquenga. How did this whole thing come to your mind, I guess? What was the nexus for the idea of coming up with this story?
The game came to my mind because I used to draw symbolic drawings. Like I study art history, and I really like how people could make something symbolic and tell so much about it without saying really a word. So the game came to my mind because I wanted to symbolize this beautiful thing that happened in my life. That's basically what the game is. It's also dedicated to that person that made an important change in my life.
Oh.
And the game wouldn't exist without that person in the first place.
So you'd say the game is very personal to your life and experience, is like an expression of a relationship you've had with a person?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. That's quite nice. Forgive me if this is too personal of a question, you can just feel free to tell me so, and I can edit it out. But has that person played this game?
Yes, she did.
And what did they think of it?
She liked it. She liked the ambience. I don't really remember the whole thing, but yeah, she liked it, and that made me very happy.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to think about games that are created with specific relationships and niches in mind, and even sometimes creating gameplay and stories for and with a particular person in mind can really make your focus quite deep, and I think that kind of can resonate with people, how personal it is. Yeah, so both of you describe your games as dark fantasy, is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's quite a prevalent theme, and if I were to wager a definition, it would be that subgenre of works that incorporate darker and frightening themes of fantasy. So there's often elements like horror, and it has this kind of gloomy or dark tone or sense of horror or dread. So I'd say if you still consider what you create to have elements of dark fantasy, or that you belong in some parts to this genre. What is it like being a game developer making a dark fantasy game? Is there certain kind of, are there things that are very unique to creating in this genre that you either didn't expect or kind of are unique to creating dark fantasy?
Probably with my game it's probably that it doesn't look that dark at first,
and then it kind of becomes progressively more dark in theme or tone, or would you say visuals? So you'd say that it progressively gets more dark?
Yes.
And that's like a conscious decision that you made. Interesting. So like, because I can't think of like people who create like horror games or films and stuff, and I'm just wondering, I think in particular, if you are creating a game that has quite a dark and oppressive atmosphere, I'm just wondering whether that puts your mind in a certain place after you've created it for a while. Like, does it bring happy feelings, or does it make you feel more down? Like, what happens to your emotions when you're creating in such a kind of tone? Or is it just the same as creating in any other space?
I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. I guess it was different with Orompaquenga.
Yeah.
I felt especially down when I was near the end making the game.
Because it had more sort of darker themes, so I suppose I was wondering, because for some people they are fine with creating games in like a sort of a darker tone and it doesn't affect them emotionally, but I was wondering, there's some... Oh, how about you, Deficiency? How do you feel when you're creating, say, darker games or more horrorful games in tone? Do you love it, or does it kind of affect you a little bit, or how does that work?
I think it affects me. It affects me, at least while I'm processing these things, because it's difficult. I try to explore difficult topics because those are the ones worth exploring.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's meant to catalyze some kind of a realization or introspection, in myself, so that is fulfilling. And I hope that translates to my players as well.
Yeah, there's a reason why we play horror games, and I don't think that's to torture ourselves. I think it's to bring some kind of release, actually. Like, there's some sense that if we observe the horrors that are within us, then we'll kind of come to a better terms of them and be able to, I don't know, for like a better term, laugh in its face or something. I don't know. It's a sort of interesting phenomenon, and I think, when I think of like creating in that space, there's certainly some kind of, maybe you come to your own realizations as you're creating and things like that when you're creating in this dark tone. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I suppose this is actually for probably both of you as well. I know that Throne features a lot of lore delivered through notes, and I'm not sure how else may be organically integrated with the world as well. And I know for Isopodomancer, I know that I don't know about Orompaquenga, but I know about Warrior of Nowhere apparently contains what you call the medieval ambientation with the dark lore, which sort of sounds similar to Throne in some ways, but might be different in others. How do you plan to deliver like the lore? Is it kind of delivered through notes, or how do you find delivering the lore and the story of your game? How do you sort of bring that about?
I don't know. I kind of like to be a bit cryptic with when talking about the lore. Like I don't like to be straight.
Yeah.
I want the player. If the player is interested in the lore, like he can dig deeper and look into it, and he will probably find it. And if he isn't, he just will play. He will just play the game and never understand the lore.
Yeah, I know it feels better as a player sometimes to find things, little tidbits of lore that are hidden just for you, kind of thing. Like, it's because of your curiosity, it's being satiated by some, when you explore and you go beyond, like, the norm and you go into the non-linear portion of things, and then you find new secrets that you wouldn't have found if you weren't so curious, kind of thing. Is it that kind of aspect of it?
Yeah, it is.
And how do you find you approach that deficiency? Is it in a similar kind of way where you're like hiding lore in the corners, or you kind of bringing it up to the forefront, or how do you prefer to display this part of the story?
I am in a similar school of thought to Isopodomancer. I think, it just creates a little treasure for people to take with them when they discover something for themselves. So I will implement lore in more indirect places like item descriptions or environmental cues, or
I like that.
There's an ask system, so you can ask people about keywords similar to in Final Fantasy II. So
there's some. I'll actually transition that into like a talk about gameplay and structure. Deficiency with Throne. There's a lot of decisions made here that are kind of unconventional that I wouldn't quite expect. I suppose it's like a non-linear kind of game about it set within a week, but then there's apparently missions every day, and then there's sort of like it's sort of like you said, the keyword system, and there's some other innovative systems in there as well that I'm quite interested in. You also said something like grinding. You make this claim on your game page: grinding is a thing of the past, but perhaps that's really even true. Yeah, I mean, like how do you like implement these sorry, let me rephrase the question. How do you feel you approach these kind of innovative gameplay mechanics, and do you feel like you succeeded at it, or were there some setbacks in trying to innovate on this form?
Okay, so I think at first I underestimated the amount of work that goes into creating a world that develops over time,
right?
Especially when you take into account things like the ask system and like, okay, so what if this character experienced this like optional event midway through the game, then they have to have a different, thing set up, different dialogue, and in a nonlinear story, this can happen or it, might not happen. You know what I mean? So that I think is probably the biggest setback in terms of, just like complexity. Other things. Okay. Oh, could you repeat the question? Because I have more to say.
Oh yeah, sure. Like, when it comes to the different innovative gameplay mechanics, say like the lack of grinding and the keyword dialogue system.
Oh yes.
Yeah. What were your thoughts about what did you succeed at, and were there any setbacks to do with that?
Yeah, sure. So the lack of grinding, I guess my approach to that was increase the abstraction, and make progression a little bit more meaningful, a la, kind of like Sekiro's system, like we were talking about earlier. So like things like you will get the upgrade item after you complete a meaningful task, rather than after killing an arbitrary number of goblins. You know what I mean? So
the key is that it's not arbitrary, right? It's like it has some meaning and some purpose behind it, is what you're trying to like kind of invoke, is that it's not like, okay, you have to do the same thing over and over again just to get some points, just to get to the next part. You really wanted there to be some kind of custom feeling, like real feeling, like progression to it, right?
Yeah. In this upcoming update, I'm kind of pushing that concept even further to where different bosses drop like unique viscera, that can unlock unique skills in the skill tree. So depending on how you explore the world, you'll find maybe a new skill that you wouldn't have if you progress the other way. And this will create emergence and different experiences for every player.
Yeah, that's probably one of the main things I guess I'd kind of gain from that, is that you want a different experience for each player with regards to the gameplay, but also the story. And if I were to like kind of bring an example to the table, there's this game called Therapist Mind Manager by Colunio. I'm just obsessed with this game. But actually it seems to tackle story in much the same way, where you can encounter certain story nodes, or if you choose not to, they won't appear. And I think when Colunio, the developer, kind of observes Let's Plays of his games, he realizes they can sometimes play it in such a way that they ignore certain story beats altogether, and he's like, oh wait, they didn't get that story beat in the arc to kind of validate a later character change. And I find that kind of interesting. Where you might, I don't know whether you find this in your game, where people, when you see Let's Players, they come through your game and you're like, wait, without this entire arc that they've kind of noticed, it might feel a little empty. Do you feel like the same way about your game, or is it a little bit different?
In a way, I think with me, I have less of a problem with story beats showing up later, just in terms of like people not having experienced the first part, and more like it ends up being like an issue of signposting for like,
right.
So, you really have to be clear with like, I don't know, like color saturation or like value contrast to draw people's eyes to a certain thing so they look at it, and just like notice that this is the thing that they should be looking at that has implications for the story.
Yeah, you want to be really clever about that with like the environmental clues you were saying, right?
Yeah. Ideally, I mean, this is commonly said, like I want to do the show don't tell thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. We'll switch over to Isopodomancer and Orompaquenga. I'd like to focus in on its gameplay. You've described it as having skills that depend on the weapon you equip. Every weapon's unique with their own skills and animations. And you also have like a hard mode or an anxious mode that adds new enemies and other dangers. And also apparently you can, quote-unquote, side with the enemy and change your adventure and interactions through the game. I'd like to ask how you approached gameplay in Orompaquenga, and did you feel like you succeeded at what you were aiming for, or were there some setbacks, or how did you go with that?
I think it could improve. Like the idea that I had, I think the idea was good, but I'm not sure if I implemented it correctly.
Right. Were there certain which part do you feel like was maybe the setbacks? Was it the hard mode, the anxious mode thing, or was it the siding with the enemy, or was it like the whole thing that kind of was a little bit difficult to balance?
I think the hardest part to balance was the weapons, because they all. I wanted to make it so you can the starter weapon can be useful until the final battle, for example, and I don't think I achieved that.
Yeah, it's kind of like balancing in that kind of way can be difficult, especially when you're doing some unique things like that. Like both of you seem to be using unique gameplay mechanics, and some of them, like, I mean, I know we've created games like since like the 80s or 70s, us as people, but like some of them, we still kind of tread new ground when it comes to specific combinations of gameplay, and then you kind of look around for similar games and you're like, I don't know if there are any games that do this very same thing that I'm trying to do. At least I don't know of them. Did you feel like that sometimes, where you're like, okay, I'm trying to make something, but I can't find anything that's a good example of it?
Well, actually, this idea of making each weapon have their own skills came from Dark Souls. I was just playing Dark Souls and I noticed how the moveset of a spear and a sword or a great sword were different from. They were different, and I thought, what if I do this with RPG Maker, where each weapon is not like the same weapon, but it just makes more damage. What if I make each weapon different? And that's what I did.
As for Warrior of Nowhere, do you feel like that's a simpler or more complex battle system than the one that you have in Orompaquenga?
I think it is simpler, to be honest, but I'm trying to change that in the remake.
Yeah, interesting. Like, do you think that you'd try and go for a more riskier kind of concept? Like how you had the skills with each weapon, or will you try and kind of go, I suppose, deeper with the more traditional kind of aspects, or are you going to be even more experimental than Orompaquenga?
It's like I don't know how to describe it. It's something like really weird, because the monsters will act different depending on what you do.
Yeah.
Like,
wow, that's really cool.
For example, one monster might be blind or deaf, and he will try to smell you to know where you are. So, or if the monster is just blind, he will try to hear. So sometimes you can keep making your party members noises, so the monster doesn't know exactly where to
That's
target.
nice.
Is that done like on the map, like with the or is that like done in the battle system with like a skill?
It's done in the battle system.
Oh, yeah. Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that perhaps people kind of place the incorrect emphasis on, they place the emphasis on like skills of the hero and something and making them as cool as possible. But I think monster AI might even be more important, like making each monster different and require different things, different strategies for you to kind of overwhelm them. Like how you said, like how different monsters smell differently, or how they have different behaviors. A concept that I kind of follow or think about when designing or looking at the design of games is the idea of puzzles. Usually puzzles bring it down to like it's like minimal elements of like introducing one concept at a time to learn. And if you don't learn it, then I guess you can't progress. And that's how I see like certain games. I've heard like Sekiro has maybe that kind of that vibe where they block you off from continuing if you don't learn a certain thing, or so like they'll kind of teach you one element at a time. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I've heard about it. So it's like a puzzle in that way, and I think that'll be an interesting kind of idea for anybody who has like enemy centric RPGs. In my opinion, if you have the emphasis on that, it really turns out to be a great RPG, because you're focusing on the obstacle and varying that up in enough interesting ways that people will be like. The one thing that I think can sometimes make RPGs boring is if you use the same slime over and over again. You might have different abilities, but it's like, okay, fine. It's like it's the same. It's just got more HP. It's just got more defense. What is this? This is just the very same thing. That's where it becomes boring. But like, it's like enemies. Focusing on enemies can just provide great results.
Yeah, like I said earlier,
sure, I agree.
The combat is probably the hardest part of RPG Maker.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into it. Do you have anything to say about that deficiency? I kind of I focus it on Isopodomancer, but do you have something to say about enemies and AI in your game and how you kind of designed enemies in your game?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like a lot of my enemies are in the same way. You need to react to their certain behavior, or like certain things will move very slowly or very fast or be unpredictable. So it depends on like, okay, what enemy, what weapon is this enemy using, or how many of them are there. So I do want to encourage that similar type of gameplay.
Yeah, excellent, nice. I'd like to kind of finish off with a final question in our deep dive for both of you, and I think I'll start with Deficiency about Throne. Since it's still in development, I'd like to ask this question: what is going right about your game? What feels the best, and what do you think people will have the most fun with when playing Throne, or what do you feel like people will really resonate with when playing the game as it is?
So what people have been reporting is that just exploring this nonlinear world is very satisfying, and so I'm trying to double down on this concept, and hopefully through the dialogue, people gain some sort of a like a realization, like a personal realization, or just some like novel concept that they hadn't really thought much of before. Yeah, so those are the things that I think people will enjoy, and then the unique take on RPG battle systems, for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Yes, I'm looking forward to playing it on stream as well, which will be, by the time this podcast comes out, we have a stream on Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So I'll be playing Throne and Orompaquenga at that time, or maybe even Warrior of Nowhere. We'll see what happens. But yeah. And how about you, Isopodomancer, about Orompaquenga? What do you think the thing that people will enjoy the most about this game? What feels the best to you? What are you most proud of?
Well, probably the ambience and how every zone is different from one another. At least that's what most people talk about.
Yeah.
About how good the ambience was in each zone.
And is that what you're most proud about as well?
Actually, yes.
Yeah, thank you for this deep dive. I think I'm looking forward to promoting Throne and Orompaquenga and anything that you have to deliver. And yeah, it's been awesome to talk with you. Thank you, Deficiency and Isopodomancer, for being with us, the listeners, and just offering your presence. It's been a blast.
Thank you too.
Right on, yeah. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, I'd like to give this kind of opportunity to plug or promote anything you'd like, whether it's your current game or anything else you'd like to. How can we follow you as well on social media? How can we support you?
So I am at DeficiencyP on Twitter. You can find me on deficiencyproductions.itch.io. And there's, like a social link that's there where you can find, all the rest. I'm on YouTube, on Tumblr. So, yeah. And I'd like to plug, I'm taking like art commissions. So if you have, $30 to spend, drop me a DM and I'll get you set up with, like a nice monster or a nice battle background or something.
Yes, that's monsters, battle backgrounds. Is that the basis of what you do, or anything basically digitally painted? Anyone can request them?
Basically anything. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So if you need like a portrait, or you just want something cool drawn, hit me up. And
what kind of styles do you do? Do you just do that singular style, or any kind of? It's probably the painterly style, right? The mostly, or.
Yeah, I can do like a more formalistic style. I can also do like more cutesy, like anime stuff and pixel art. So if you're into any of this stuff, or of course dark fantasy, that's also my jam. Yeah, hit me up. Absolutely.
I think when people look at your art, they think, okay, it has to be in that particular style, but it seems like you're quite diverse as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, excellent. Cool. So go hit Deficiency Productions up on any of those art commissions you may have. As for yourself, Isopodomancer, what would you like to plug or promote today? How can we follow you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter and itch.io. It's.io, sorry. And I'm calling Isopodomancer everywhere, basically. And you can also go and follow Hex at Work on Twitter. Okay. It's a great artist.
Ah, yes.
Oh, cool.
Hex at Work. I'm following them now. I just started following Hex at Work. Yeah, interesting. Oh, I like the art. Very nice. And so basically you can follow Isopodomancer with any following things. I mean, Orompaquenga is already completed, right? So they can go play it. And then they got the new game coming out whenever it comes out, Warrior of Nowhere, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. Awesome. Yeah. So, and I'd also like to plug the RPG Maker Cola podcast. Go and listen to some of those episodes. Thank you for listening to this one, and then go ahead and check out some of the others. We've got a Discord. We've got a friendly Discord. Come and join our Discord, and Twitch streams every Friday, 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, where I'll be playing the guests' games, including this Friday. We'll be playing games by Deficiency Productions and Isopodomancer. And so go check that out on Twitch. Just go follow the RPG Maker Cola Twitter at RPG Maker Cola. And yeah, that's all I have to plug for my own show.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for saying yes. And yeah, we're just gonna say goodbye. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye, guys.
Bye.